You know, when we think of big success stories, our minds usually go to tech or startups or these massive achievements. But honestly, sometimes the most amazing stories are about something much, much smaller and, well, a whole lot furrier. This is a story about a rescue mission for one little squirrel, and believe me, it turned into this incredible lesson about what it really means to do the right thing.
So this whole story really boils down to one question that I think a lot of us have probably bumped into. You see an animal in trouble and your first gut instinct, right, is to help. But what happens when that simple act of helping just opens up a whole new can of worms? When does saving a life start to look a little bit like controlling it? That is the razor's edge our hero had to walk.
Okay, so here's how it all went down, kind of in three acts. It kicks off with this really violent life or death moment. That leads to a pretty miraculous survival story, which then, of course, spins out into this huge ethical mess. What in the world do you do after you've saved a wild animal? Let's dive into that first part.
It all started with a hawk attack. Just brutal. Our rescuer finds this adult squirrel, and it is so badly hurt nobody thinks it's going to make it. But here's the thing. This wasn't just some random person with a big heart. This was someone with serious professional experience with animals.
I mean, how much experience are we talking about? 17 years. 17 years working in veterinary medicine. So when this squirrel was found, it honestly had the best possible shot at survival. This wasn't just, a wing and a prayer. This was a trained professional providing life-saving care.
Given how bad the injuries were, the only goal at first was just keep him alive. Stabilization, survival, that's it. The rescuers provided all this emergency care, and against all the odds, the little guy pulled through. He didn't just survive, he actually started getting better. And that amazing first win, well, that's what led directly to the biggest problem of the entire story.
See, in the process of saving this squirrel's life, the rescuer made what they call the classic #1 mistake in wildlife rescue. They tamed it. Through all the handling, the feeding, the care, the squirrel completely lost its natural fear of people and even of dogs. It got comfortable. Way, way too comfortable.
And boom, suddenly you're facing this impossible choice. On the one hand, you could release him, but he's not ready for the wild anymore. He'd walk right up to a dog, and with a nasty winter coming, he'd be a sitting duck. So, okay, option 2, keep him inside. But is that really a life for a squirrel? Is it cruel? Is it even legal? It's just a total minefield.
And this is what makes it so tough, right? Here's the emotional gut punch. The rescuer said that the squirrel was living in a totally squirrel-proofed room, playing with toys, and was, quote, happy literally all the time. So how do you take an animal that's safe, warm, and happy and just toss it back into a dangerous world it can't handle anymore? That is a heavy, heavy weight to carry. So when you've got a problem you can't solve, where do you go? The internet, of course. The rescuer went to some online communities looking for advice, and I'm sure you can guess what happened. The opinions were strong and very, very divided.
Okay, so you had one camp that was absolutely adamant. A squirrel belongs in the wild. End of story. They were saying it was cruel, that he needed to be with other squirrels, that it might even be illegal, which could mean the authorities would put him down. Some even argued an indoor squirrel could get so stressed it would literally die. And those are all valid points. They come from a place of real respect for nature.
But the rescuer had a pretty powerful comeback. They had tried to find professional help. One place was full, and the other, well, it was run by someone the rescuer had actually fired in the past for being an, I quote, reckless and irresponsible, a person who also happened to be a flat earther and claimed to speak to spirits. So, what do you do when the by-the-book professional option is just not an option at all?
Just when it felt like a total stalemate, this brilliant idea comes through. It came from an experienced person in one of those online groups. And it wasn't about picking a side in the debate. It was a third way forward, a solution that wasn't about forcing an outcome, but about creating a choice.
The idea is called a soft release. It's brilliant. Instead of just, yeeting the squirrel out the back door and hoping for the best, it's a gradual process. You give the animal a safe home base it can always come back to, so it can explore the wild and adapt at its own pace. This was the light bulb moment, the whole game changer.
So the new plan was just perfect. First, build a big outdoor enclosure so he could get used to the sights and sounds. Next, get his diet just right for foraging in the wild. Third, and this is key, wait until spring when food is plentiful and the weather is good. And then, the master stroke. Install a little squirrel door that gives him total freedom to come and go as he pleases.
And this, right here, is the real victory of the whole story. Because in the end,
The success wasn't about the rescuers being right or winning an argument online. It wasn't even just about all their hard work. It was about what all that work actually created for the squirrel.
The rescuer finally realized that their job wasn't to decide for the squirrel whether it should be a wild animal or a tame one. That was never their call to make.
The victory was giving the squirrel a choice. By building that safe home base with a door to the big wide world, they gave the animal agency, power over its own life. It could choose safety, it could choose freedom, or it could have a little bit of both. That is the ultimate win.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? I think this story is just this powerful reminder that sometimes the official rulebook doesn't have the best answer. It kind of pushes us to ask a much bigger question, doesn't it? When is the most compassionate choice not the one that's written down, but the one that you have to find the creativity and the courage to invent yourself?